Welcome back to another energizing episode of Debunking Myths, proudly presented by Serenity, your go to platform for cutting through the fog of misunderstanding that surrounds mental health. I'm ready to peel back the layers of misconception and set the record straight with a little help from today's special guest. Joining us is a bright and driven young mind, fresh from the halls of NYU with a BA in psychology and soon embarking on a master's in clinical social work. Passionate about counseling and fervently engaged in social issues, she is here to help us tackle the tall tales and common myths about psychology and mental health. Dear listeners, please give a warm welcome to Shreya Tomar. Let's dive into the conversation that promises to enlighten, challenge, and maybe even change the way we think about mental health. Ready? Let's get started. So, psychology often faces misconceptions and myths, such as it being just common sense or you're just giving some advice. Can you share how your formal education in psychology dispelled these myths or other myths surrounding the subject of psychology?
Yeah. My first introduction to psychology was in high school. It helped kind of get rid of all the misconceptions I have personally ever been taught. Especially about the smallest things being anxious and what's making you feel anxious, even the word anxiety. And yeah, I feel like because it was so research based and it was very practically, taught to the students. My professor was also my teacher was also really nice. And yeah, just having an open space, feeling safe in the classroom to ask anything that I wanted to.
Yeah.
And again, get rid of those ideas that were taught to most of us about what psychology is, and it's just about reading minds and all of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, there's a stereotype that psychology students are constantly analyzing those around them. So, have you
Yeah.
ever encountered this myth, and how would you respond to it?
I feel like that does happen. It has happened with me, especially in college when you are bombarded with so much psych information, every personality type there is, and how people engage socially with each other.
Yeah.
You have just so much information and theories in your head. So when you do meet it happens with new people, they tell you something and it's your mind just draws conclusions. I feel like it's very easy to do that. But yeah, I feel like you need to limit yourself, stop yourself at one point, because you also want to get to know them and become their friend, and not just analyze them and make these conclusions about them that they might not even be that person, so it's mostly just false experiments in your head about what this person might be, who they might be, what they might like, what they might dislike. So yeah, I feel like it does happen because it's just right in your head, so it just comes out. But I feel like you definitely have to stop yourself. That's what I've tried to do every time someone's told me something about their past, and I'm just wait, is that why you're like this? Because this happened to you in 10 years ago. And I'm just okay, Shreya, stop. You can't do this. They're their own person. Get to know them for who they are, and not just stick to this one thing that you learned in a psych class. Relax. So that's how I kind of encountered it. But yeah.
Okay. So, when you were in high school, the college application process, I'm sure, was pretty tedious,
Yeah.
with SAT pressures and
Yeah.
predictions and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, many of our listeners, including myself, are going through the exact same process. And we would like to ask you that when you went through it, did you feel any sort of mental distress, or and if you did, how did you cope with it, or and does it still persist during college? Maybe you were feeling overwhelmed by the amount of work or something.
Yeah. No, I feel for college applications, I'm I think anxiety just comes with it. Like it's like part of the process. Like you can't not feel it, because obviously like you want to get into a place where you want to be and you want to try as hard as you can to do, do the process. But I would say just like really listen to the people who are trying to help you, and that's like the your advisors and your teachers, and just be very, very, I feel like, open to hearing their ideas, and and especially like keeping up with the deadlines. Like make yourself a different deadline. That's what I did. Like colleges have their like deadlines, for submitting applications, but I used to have like a deadline like a week before the actual deadline, or something like that. Like have your own deadline, so like you're still, even if you don't finish by your deadline, you still feel like you have space. You know what I mean? So kind of that helped me a little bit with the timing, at least, because you're also like, you have exams also, you're in 12th grade, so you anyways have other things to do than not just do college applications. So yeah, keeping definitely like a timeline is the best thing you can do for yourself in terms of like getting anxious by the end of it. And listening to basically the adults who are trying to help you, and ask as many questions as you want to. One thing I didn't do as much was like reaching out to the colleges that you were trying to apply to, or asking the admissions questions. I think would have helped me, because I was doing that when I already got to college. So maybe I could have done that before I went to college and had a more clear idea. So yeah.
That would have helped you de-stress as well.
Sorry?
That would have helped you de-stress as well. Like, be less anxious about.
Yeah, exactly. Because obviously when I went to college the first time, it was very overwhelming. It's like in a different country. Obviously, like you're new, you don't know anyone there. And I don't have specific like any relatives or friends who lived there. So obviously it was like everything was very new, a big change. So yeah, it would have helped maybe like a little more clear of like what's going to happen if I knew about it before I went to college. But yeah, college is like still very much stressful. I'm going to start masters again, and I know how much of a stress that's going to give me. But like personally, I think I like studying. So it's kind of like it's something I want to do, and it's also kind of like a nice hobby. Like it works both ways for me. So I do have like, I am very like organized with my stuff. So like definitely like pre-planning everything, pre-planning when I do my assignments and finish them off again like a week before the deadline. Like having my own deadlines again. So those little things like I feel like you can do to like help yourself not feel overwhelming when it actually happens.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Even I try to do that as much as I can, but obviously it's a little difficult, and you take some time to adjust to the schedule and everything.
Yeah, of course.
So moving on to the next question. Mental health is a stigma for many Indian families. So how do you think a proper education would help them break through this stigma?
Like an education for like families, or just...
Yeah, like maybe, workshops or sessions which enlighten them on the fact that mental health isn't just being called crazy or.
Yeah. I feel like for me, like even I have to like kind of like, my family is okay with me trying to be a therapist, but like they also like have so many questions every time I try to talk to them about them. And definitely a lot of like stigma conversations, and like them being just like thinking of this psychology thing is like, oh, it's like helping like a mentally like crazy person, and the word crazy, even like we don't even use, like obviously like in the psych world you don't use that word, but it's so common that we use it here to describe psychology. And yeah, I feel like it's about, I think education like that, it should probably like start by correcting all the stigmas, and especially like what words to use. I feel like people don't know what the vocabulary is around psychology except, the word insane or like crazy. So maybe just like giving them more words that actually fit the what actually psychology like is and mental health is. So maybe like starting off like with the vocabulary, I feel like would be nice. And I'm also very focused on like research. So because I feel like that's how you know what a group of people or like how much percentage of the world is like feeling or like what are they doing. So it's like when I feel like when it's like numbered, it has this thing that just becomes more official. So I feel like even like teaching them a little about like the research that happens in psychology that can be used in like everyday life, like just knowing that would help. Because it's like something that has been studied. It's not just a theory that you can just say, oh, it's just an opinion. Like, it's not an opinion. Like, this was a study, done with so many people, and it actually has a conclusion that makes sense for these many people. So I feel like just explaining it like that, and definitely like simple terms. I don't think the family like needs to know what the halo effect is, right? They don't need to go into that deep, but it would just be like talking about it and talking about mental health specifically, because they have children, and asking them how they are doing mentally once a week. I think it's an amazing thing you can do for a kid. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, you mentioned using the right terminology for psychology. So, in your own simple words, maybe could you just describe for our viewers what it would mean? What does psychology actually mean, and how does that, reflect on mental health per se?
Yeah. I would say like the broad term to like describe psychology would just be, like studying how the mind works.
Yeah.
And how that is attached to your own identity, yourself, the people around you, your environment, your genetics. Like those are the broad like terms that I would use to describe psychology. And I feel like mental health is like a sub part of psychology that focuses more on like, the self, like how are you doing? How are you perceiving the world around you? How are you feeling about it? What are your thoughts? What are your behaviors? And what are your actions? How are you like waking up in the morning? How are you sleeping? How are you eating? Also like a connection to the physical self.
Yeah.
I think that's how I would just, in like broad terms, I think I would describe it like that.
Okay. So, continuing on the same topic, from your perspective, what are the most common stigmas associated with mental health in today's society?
Personally, the ones that I have been encountered with is like I want to be a therapist, so people usually think that I'll be, treating people in like mental asylums. Like I feel like that just comes out of like, because there are a lot of movies made, obviously, like in Hollywood and Bollywood, and they show just, just very dark stories in like mental asylums, like people just not being people, like they're portrayed as like monsters. So obviously it gives you an idea of feeling unsafe. So like that's what like my parents were also like, oh, it's going to be so unsafe for you. Like, how are you going to be able to handle that? And I'm like, that's not how it works also like anymore. Also in the space that I want to go in, like there's definitely just going to be one room and a couch. Like that's what I want to do. Even like the idea of like mental health patients is very like they're not human, so you have to be you have to like roam around with like injections to like make them feel human, you know what I mean? Like it's just so monster like that they're portrayed. So I feel like that's like one misconception I've definitely come across the most. And it's like even for therapy, like people think it doesn't work and it's just useless. Like, why do you need someone else to tell you how to feel. But again, that's not what therapy is. They don't tell you how to feel. They kind of just like listen to you and help you navigate your feelings. Like that, those things are different. So even like idea of therapy is very like stigmatized, 100%. And yeah, I've heard this also, like, oh, therapist just tells you what to do and then you just do that. Again, like, not true. You have your own, you're able to still make your own actions. Like, you're just not listening to one person and they're telling sleep at 11, so you sleep at 11. Like, that's not how it works. What else? And yeah, then obviously there are like psychologies about like, learning about the crazy people, and there's just like this part of group in the world, the people who are crazy, quote unquote, they just need help. Like, we are okay. Like, the other part, there's just like kind of putting them out as outsiders in a way. So even that, yeah. But like, we know like every one person in like, I don't know, maybe like 3 people now is like feels anxious. Obviously, it's like such a common feeling for everyone.
It is. It's quite a common feeling, and especially in teenagers now. So yeah, statistics show that like around 50% of teens do face mental distress. So
yeah. And I feel like it's also just like people didn't know the word anxious before as much.
Yeah.
But obviously, I feel like through social media, everyone's getting to know more about it. But that doesn't mean people. This is also like, I find like really dumb when people are like, oh, there's so many more anxious people today. Because it's like Gen Z thing to feel anxious. I'm like, that's not true. It's just like we have a word to use now. Like before, we didn't have the vocabulary. Now we know how we feel. Like, we can put it into words, which is such an amazing thing. But that doesn't mean they're just more anxious people.
It means that more people are getting involved.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, what are the most significant barriers to accessing mental health care, and how could these be overcome in the future?
I would definitely say education, like government supported education, is still lacking 100%. It's especially in schools. I feel from a very young age, you should be able to like talk about your feelings in school also, and have again the vocabulary to like phrase how you're feeling in the like the right words to use. And that can start from like the first grade. Like when you're a kid, obviously like, people ask you how, like, we do feel happy, sad, we're humans from the day one. So definitely like government policies still like lack putting like mental health as part of education. And I feel like even like resources, like obviously like some people don't have the availability or don't have the available resources to, even if they want a therapist, they can't get to a therapist. It's still like an expensive thing, unless it's like an NGO based therapy, which is also, I don't feel there are a lot that we have. I would say in India especially. And because again, the talk of mental health is still very stigmatized, so people also themselves don't want to go and just contact a therapist. And I've heard people do a lot of online therapy these days, but I feel like again, if you don't have a laptop, then that again becomes an issue. So the resources part is definitely a barrier. I just have these 2 in mind for now, personally, that I can think of.
Yeah, no, that's actually very good because it's one of the main things. Even when I asked a few people around for why they don't open up about their mental health, they do say that they don't have any avenues to project their feelings. So it's crucial to develop those. Speaking of developing ways to cure mental health, with this new upcoming technology age, where AI is the new big thing.
Yeah.
Do you believe that artificial intelligence can aid in providing the lack of friendship or the lack of emotional support that people feel?
Like it can help it, or
Yeah, it can like maybe improve it somewhat and maybe make people feel happier on an occasional day.
yeah. I mean, with like AI, everything that I've like ever learned, I feel like it always has. I mean, there's always like a borderline to it. Like, I feel like yes, it can help. Like you said, like even like an AI like chat box, like you can talk to the AI, like I'm not feeling good. Like, how can I help myself today? And they can like, it can give you a list of like, eat something that makes you feel happy, watch a movie that makes you feel happy, like, something like that,
Yeah, yeah.
which I feel like is a great, like a great resource to use, especially in the moments when you don't have any other access that you can, go for. You're just in your bed feeling sad and you just want one thing to do that will make you feel a little better. But I think there's definitely like a, like, like a, what do you call it? Like a limit to it. I feel like if you're just gonna take help from the AI, then I feel like the social part of yourself might feel like you might lose it.
Yes.
Right? You still need a social support. If not family, then friends. If not some adult in your life that helps you, your teachers, anyone. So yeah, there's always like a limit to using the AI, and I feel like that for everything. Yeah. So I feel it can help, but I feel like you have to be very conscious about how you're making use of it in that sense.
Yeah, of course. So moving on to a little more personal topic. What was the trigger event or like maybe the primary reason for you to choose this particular field of study? Like for example, there's a lot of stigma surrounding the subject of psychology as we previously discussed.
Yeah.
So what was the reason or what pushed you towards actually choosing this subject?
My family has like we have my like dad's side is my uncle, like he's schizophrenic, and like I have my dad's other brother, like he was depressed, and this is not something I knew before. It was something I like found out like recently, like 4-5 years ago. And it just kind of like, and we talked about it a lot since then. And then at the same time, I was studying psychology. So I feel like that personal connection to it, having it been a part of my family, and then like being taught about it in class, and then feeling like it's something that I can do, because I also know that I am good at like talking to people, and I know I'm like the person when someone comes to when they feel sad. So it just felt like it's something that I can do.
Yeah.
And yeah, having had that connection personally and talking to it about with my family, with my mom, especially most with my mom, I just kind of felt like a right fit. Like it was definitely not a decision I thought about over the years. It was something that like just clicked in like one day. So yeah, I feel like that's
the best way to sum it up.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, so lastly, knowing that your interest is in counseling and social work, could you state your plans for the future, specifically in relation to your passion for the subject of psychology and mental health for teens?
Yeah. Okay, so I did my undergrad in psych, and I'm going to do my master's in like clinical social work.
Yeah.
Because I didn't choose the counseling path. I chose like the social work path because I wanted to I feel like broaden my horizons more, because I also wanted to work with like education systems, so like public schools in New York. and kind of implementing counseling there.
Okay.
I feel like if you, because I feel like just like doing therapy and treating people who have the money to give to you is not as like big of an impact as you can leave if you're doing it literally for like students in like a classroom.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of like do both things, and like this like clinical social work was like the best way that I can do it. I can like do therapy, which is personal, having one client on client neuro sessions, and then I also want to do like very like help the education system like become more mental health proactive. Yeah, and my dad also like is an educationist. Like he owns like a chain of schools, so like education has been like a really big part of my life since I was a baby. So that's why I also want to
Yeah.
like implement it in my future. But yeah, that's the plan. I also want to focus more on like relationship and marriage counseling.
Interesting.
Like that's like I would like specialization like is something that I
Yeah.
want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. So I think that's enough for today. Yeah, thank you so much
Of
for
course.
coming.
Thank you so much. This was lovely. I haven't talked about mental health or psychology in such a long time. 10 months I've had such a big break. This was very nice.
This is like a comeback for you.
It was literally like come back, yeah.
As we wrap up today's enlightening conversation, let's reflect on the pivotal role that studying psychology plays in our understanding of mental health. Our guest today, along with countless other dedicated psychology students, is not just acquiring knowledge, she is actively paving the way for a future where mental health is destigmatized. By challenging outdated notions and fostering open discussions, these trailblazers are making it easier for teens and others to speak up about their struggles without fear of judgment. Remember, fellow viewers, the path to mental wellness begins with conversation and education. Continue your mental health journey with serenity and stay tuned for more such content on mental health. Here on Debunking Myths, we are all about breaking barriers and building understanding, one myth at a time.